Jungkook's long-awaited return took a chilling turn, one his mother felt before he even had the chance to breathe. On the evening of June 11th, just hours after being officially discharged from military service, a Chinese Sasaeng fan was arrested outside Jungkook's Seoul home, having attempted to break in by repeatedly entering the door passcode around 11:20 p.m. This incident has rocked his artistic family and reignited national discussions on idol safety and privacy. Sources reveal it was Jungkook's mother who broke down first, not from joy at his return, but from fear. The prospect that her own home, the sanctuary she shared with her son, was nearly violated haunted her sleep that night. For Jungkook, who expressed concerns as far back as 2023, asking fans not to send food or drop by unannounced, this was proof that his warnings were painfully justified. This wasn't just a headline. It became a personal crisis. The responsibility to protect her child, who just re-entered civilian life, weighed heavily on his mother. She was back on high alert, fearing every knock and every shadow, and it wasn't an isolated vulnerability. This reflects a deeper crisis. The phenomenon of Sasaeng fans, once limited to Korea, has spread across borders. Fueled by social media exposure and extreme celebrity fandom, these fans cross boundaries, invade private spaces, and blur the line between admiration and danger. For idols and their families, it's a constant battle for a sense of safety. The Yongsan police confirmed the Chinese national was arrested on suspicion of trespassing, and they're investigating her motives. Whether it was an isolated obsessive act or part of prolonged stalking, this invasion happening on the very day of his discharge adds a dark echo to what was supposed to be a joyful milestone. Jungkook returned from service, proud, changed, ready for new beginnings, only to be met with threat at his threshold. This incident underscores the real-world consequences of idol culture. Beneath the curated images and grand performances lies a deep-seated need for privacy and safety, not just for performers, but for the families who share their homes. HYB and Jungkook have not yet released any statement about the break-in, but the public outcry has been immediate. Korean and global armies are calling for stricter protections, legal reform, and stronger enforcement to prevent such threats. Many are also pushing platforms to crack down on content that indirectly fuels stalking, like YouTubers or influencers revealing idols' residential details. At the center of it all is Jungkook's mother, a woman who welcomed back her son only to relive the horror of almost losing him again, this time not to duty, but to fanaticism. Her tears of relief were overshadowed by tears of fear. And in that moment, millions around the world felt it. Because idol comebacks aren't only about stage lights and album drops. Sometimes they begin with home and the raw, unfiltered need for safety that it should represent. It didn't take long before what should have been a warm, celebrated homecoming turned into a storm of panic and heartbreak. Jungkook, who had just stepped out of his 18-month military service, hadn't even taken off his boots before his mother was faced with every parent's worst nightmare: a stranger at the door, punching in codes, trying to get in. Not a deliver man, not a friend, a Sasaeng, the same breed of obsessive fan Jungkook had begged to stop sending food to his house in 2023. The same kind of shadow he's lived with for years, watching, waiting, crossing boundaries masked as affection. But this time, it wasn't anonymous. This time, it came too close. A woman from China, described by police as a long-term follower of the idol, was caught on security footage attempting to break into the home. She had reportedly been lurking in the neighborhood for days, having flown in around the time of Jungkook's discharge. Security personnel noticed her tampering with a digital lock late at night, trying combinations repeatedly until police were dispatched. Her motive remains under investigation, but what she left behind is clear: fear. Sources close to the family said Jungkook's mother collapsed into tears not long after police arrived. She hadn't expected that the very day she'd prayed for, the day her son would come back safe from military duty, would be the day she'd feel violated, unsafe, and terrified in her own home. This wasn't just a fan gone too far. This was an assault on the last place she believed was untouchable. The reality is cold and heartbreaking. Idols might sign up for fame, but their families don't. Yet they become unwilling participants in the theater of obsession that surrounds Korea's biggest stars. And for mothers like Jungkook's, every photo posted, every rumor spread, every fan-made map of idol hangouts becomes a fresh source of anxiety. That anxiety turned to terror this week. And here's the most painful part. It's not new. Jungkook has pleaded for privacy more than once. In a now-viral Weverse post from 2023, he said plainly that showing up at his home, or sending food, wasn't just inappropriate, it was illegal. He warned of taking action. He sounded exhausted, exasperated. And now, even after serving his country with quiet discipline, even after disappearing from the spotlight for over a year, the shadow of this obsession still followed him home. His first night as a free man should have been spent hugging his mother, sleeping in, laughing over dinner. Instead, it was spent reviewing surveillance tapes and giving statements to police. The army is heartbroken. Not just because someone crossed a line, but because it keeps happening. Despite petitions, despite laws, despite pleas from the idols themselves, Sasaeng culture persists. It evolves, migrates, and manipulates digital spaces to stalk in silence until it explodes into headlines. And each time it does, it chips away at the fragile safety net idols try to preserve. Fans across the world are rallying behind Jungkook, trending tags like #ProtectJungkook and #LeaveHimAlone, demanding that HYB increase on-site security and initiate immediate legal proceedings against the intruder. But even as justice plays out in court, the damage to Jungkook's peace is already done. For an artist who has spoken about loneliness, burnout, and mental vulnerability with poetic honesty in his music, this incident is a cruel reminder. Even with all the love in the world, he cannot hide from the cost of his fame. And what about his mother? She didn't cry when he enlisted. She smiled and waved and supported him like any proud parent. But when the knock came after midnight, when the keypad beeped and strangers in uniform pulled a woman from their front door, that's when she cried. Not because he had returned, but because she knew he would never truly be safe. In that moment, Jungkook wasn't an idol. He was just a son, and she just a mother. One who, after 18 months of waiting, found herself praying not for his career, but for his protection. What happens next is uncertain. Will security be tightened? Will HYB speak out forcefully? Will Sasaeng culture finally be addressed with the seriousness it deserves? Or will this just be one more scar? One more quiet chapter in the long, painful saga of what it costs to be adored by millions, because Jungkook didn't ask for this welcome, and his mother will never forget in the days that followed. Silence echoed louder than any headline. HYB did not issue an immediate statement, and Jungkook himself, typically vocal and warm toward fans on Weverse, did not post a single word. The absence of response, the stillness, wasn't just professional protocol. It was personal. Deeply personal. A choice rooted in exhaustion and a possible sense of betrayal by the very system that claimed to protect him. Behind closed doors, what was he thinking? What did he say to his mother when the door closed and the reporters had gone? Perhaps nothing. Perhaps they just sat in the living room where he grew up, the same room where they once shared childhood laughter and late-night meals, now clouded with the realization that safety was a myth. Fans, however, refused to stay silent. Social media exploded with concern, not just from Korean armies but from international ones who have watched time and again as Sasaengs treated privacy as a game. Has the industry become so accustomed to obsession that only attempted break-ins are considered serious enough to warrant attention? Many fans have begun pulling up older clips. Jungkook mentioning in V-Lives how uncomfortable it felt to see fans camped outside his house, how he couldn't even walk his dog without checking over his shoulder. Some armies remembered the time Jungkook deliberately blurred the window view in a live stream, fearing someone would triangulate his address. He knew this day would come. This wasn't just a fan being too enthusiastic. This was a security failure that played out at the exact moment Jungkook should have been allowed peace. If the home isn't safe, if the door isn't safe, then where does it stop? And this is where it gets even more disturbing. The woman who attempted to enter Jungkook's house wasn't just randomly walking the neighborhood. Reports suggest she may have tracked him from his discharge site, a chilling revelation that suggests long-term planning. It wasn't love. It wasn't excitement. It was calculated invasion, Police have remained tight-lipped about the questioning process, but Korean netizens are already calling for her to be deported and blacklisted permanently. Many ask why immigration systems or local authorities don't flag repeat Sasaeng travelers, especially those with previous incidents linked to K-pop idols. One user wrote, "If we can track flight history for concerts, why not for people who keep doing this? Why must an idol's family suffer first before the law reacts?" But what hurts the most is how familiar this all feels. This isn't the first time Jungkook has faced this. And likely, unless the culture around idol obsession changes radically, it won't be the last. The difference now is his family was brought into the fire. His mother's tears weren't just symbolic. They were a cry for help, a demand for boundaries in a world that often pretends idols don't deserve any. Even within the ARMY fandom, there are fractures. A difficult, emotional conversation is emerging. Can true fans still support an industry that doesn't shield its artists from this level of harm? Should there be global campaigns to push agencies like HYBE to form cross-agency protection protocols? Or is it time to demand legislative change from the Korean government, where Sasaeng behavior is finally treated as a criminal threat, not an awkward fan quirk? For now, Jungkook remains quiet. His family is under increased security. The suspect is being held for investigation, and fans are watching, some helplessly, some furiously, hoping this will be a turning point. But the damage, once again, is already done. This wasn't the comeback anyone wanted for Jungkook. This was a homecoming marked by handcuffs and flashlights, not hugs and celebration. It should have been a moment where he returned to comfort, to the embrace of his mother's arms and the calmness of a private mourning. Instead, it became a nightmarish reminder that even the most beloved artists in the world are not safe from obsession. IT raises an uncomfortable question for every fan to answer. When admiration crosses the line into entitlement, do we turn away or do we speak up? Because the silence that follows these stories is never harmless. It's what allows the next knock on the door to happen, and maybe next time, there won't be security cameras. Maybe next time, there won't be a call to the police in time. Maybe next time it will be too late. And if that thought doesn't break your heart for Jungkook, and for the mother who waited 548 days for her son only to weep from fear, then we've all failed him, because being loved by millions should never mean losing the right to feel safe inside your own home.